The world's largest Bitcoin exchange just exposed the United States plan for Bitcoin, but everybody is missing one major detail that he said, but not outwardly said. And it might show that Michael Saylor and his plan for Bitcoin for the United States might just come true. And it'll be bigger than Cynthia Lummis's bill. But first, let's hear exactly what Coinbase had to say.
Revalue gold to current market prices. That would create a mark-to-market gain of $900 billion, right? And if you look at, I think the Senator Lummis bill was calling for buying, I think it's 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. Well, that's $100 billion, if I have the math right. So our back of the envelope is that when the revaluation occurs, that creates a $900 billion, given today's market price, mark-to-market gain, which then is money.
Did you hear that? $900 billion created. And now it says, hey, that asset management position, Sebastian Bay, just said that he believes that this would create about $100 billion worth to buy Bitcoin. But the interesting aspect of all of this is he described how it would happen. It simply would take no government money, no extra taxpayer dollars. It wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary. It would be a budget neutral way to buy $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, 100 billion, excuse me. But something that he said during all of this was that not only would it be, hey, we could buy $100 billion worth for the Senator Lummis bill, but Michael Saylor proposed something not too long ago that would make it very, very big. In fact, a lot bigger than that 900 billion or that 100 billion. And I'll get into that in a minute, folks. You got to stick around for the juicy stuff a little bit later. First, let's dive in to exactly what he said, right? We're not going to be reading through any tea leaves here. We're not going to be getting uber bullish or anything like that. We'll simply be reporting on what he says, and then we'll get into a little bit of the speculation here later on. But Sebastian Bay believes that a technical change, the way that the Washington accounts for gold, would unlock enough budget to neutral capital for strategic Bitcoin purchase approaching 100 billion years ahead of market expectations. They could do that today if they wanted to, right? So he did that in a 40-minute appearance on The Scoop. Sometimes the ideas are so big that people either can't hear them or don't want to hear them, but they've got to listen to this one. That's the big thing, right? So he lined it out here. We have 261.5 million ounces of gold. That's recorded at $42 an ounce. That's a pretty big gap between the spot price right now of 3,300. So we don't even have to get to the giant aspect of all of this, right? We don't even have to get to the 3,000 mark. But this, if we did, it would get to the 900 billion, which is absolutely astronomical. So today, because of law, the U.S. government still values the gold that it holds at Fort Knox at $42 an ounce, which is nuts. That's nuts. If anybody could find that deal for me, I'll buy gold off the U.S. for $42 an ounce if you'd like. If they were able to just mark that to an incremental of 900, I heard $1 billion to $1 trillion. I mean, that's like massive, massive amounts of money, right? So this would speed up the process of the United States buying Bitcoin. In fact, creating that sovereign wealth fund. So Howard Lubnick and Donald Trump have been working hand in hand so far in order to create this. And so because Howard Lubnick's already sitting there and twiddling his thumbs, helping evaluate everything, I think Donnie T's got a little bit of a rush when it comes to stuff like this, right? I mean, we've seen the tariffs, the sporadic nature of those go back and forth. I wouldn't be surprised if something like this happens in the snap of an instant, right? It's something that could occur very quickly. And I think people are underestimating quite the speed of all of this. And, you know, we've got articles popping up left and right that the U.S. says they'll buy 100 billion in Bitcoin as soon as possible. Right. And that is all rooting from Cynthia Lummis's bill, where she has proposed that they would buy Bitcoin, 100,000 or 200,000 Bitcoin, right? Over every single year for 5 years, which would make 1 million Bitcoin, which is currently valued at $100 trillion. Now, my personal opinion, and I'm sure many opinion of you here in the chat, is that if this bill passes, Wall Street's going to front run, other nation states are going to try to front run. It's going to shoot the price well higher than that 100 billion mark that we're sitting at right now, right? So it would be very difficult to scoop all that, and we would be basically paying more and more every single year in order to obtain the same amount of Bitcoin. Well, this plan would allow you to do that in the snap of a finger, right? We reevaluate it. Hey, we're going to go get this Bitcoin right away tomorrow. Okay, maybe that sends Bitcoin skyrocketing in flight right away. But what that will happen is that the US will get it at a cheap price, and then everybody will be bum rushing in afterwards. So the US would be sitting pretty right away. So it's interesting that this is being lined out. But what was something interesting that this guy said, Sebastian Bay? What else did he say in all of this, guys? Let's listen into a little bit more and take a little bit more longer of a listen.
That the Treasury could then take, and then the Treasury would be able to use that money in the sovereign wealth fund in a budget neutral manner to go and buy a variety of things. We think probably including Bitcoin. And just to think about the math, $100 billion of 900 billion doesn't sound like that much. But the asset is about a $1.8 trillion asset. And if we go from no longer selling, right, which we just did, to here's a way by which we can actually take on a meaningful position, it's hard to see a situation where other governments don't feel compelled in some way to measure up.
And
right?
then you have this arms race as it
Boom. They're even going into it more where they're saying you have this arms race. But what is something peculiar here, right? They're talking about all of 900 billion. They're like, hey, we'd only buy 100 billion worth of Bitcoin. But what did Michael Saylor propose not too long ago, folks? He proposed that we would buy 5 to 25% of the total Bitcoin supply by 2035, which projected could generate up to $81 trillion by 2045. That is magnitudes more than what Senator Cynthia Lummis proposed. Now, if we could get this amount of Bitcoin budget neutral, right? If we could get the Senator Cynthia Lummis bill like that in a snap of a finger, all of these people have come out, Bo Hines, everybody has come out and said already that they want to acquire as much Bitcoin as humanely possible right away, as quickly as possible. So if that's the case, Michael Saylor's plan is not that crazy now, is it? It's like the United States is digging through their freaking couch over here, figuring out all these different ways to just acquire more money so they can acquire more Bitcoin. It seems like it's only a matter of time before this arms race is off to the races. And I think that because of what these people in the cabinet and, Michael Saylor and all of their ears, everything like that, what they're saying right now is saying we want to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. We all know that. We've heard that multiple times from multiple different people. And on top of that, they're like, we're going to find a budget neutral way. We've had this same budget neutral way proposed by multiple people now as well, right? So whatever they're doing in Washington, they have their ears to the streets, at least just a little bit, enough to hear these things, right? They're going viral with all of these different ideas, and they're going to continue to take off, right? Because of what we've got here. Michael Saylor potentially proposing to buy 5% to 25% of this 21 million. So that's over 5 million coins. So that 100 billion turns into 500 billion, maybe even 600 billion. And then that 900 billion that they got, it seems like we have a decent amount of allocation straight towards Bitcoin, straight from the jump. And now that is not so crazy when you really look at Howard Lubnick and his portfolio that they've really dived out and gone into. And I'm going to get into that a little bit in a little bit. So be sure you stick around for that. But first, we've got to check out how we're doing here. I know you guys are joking with me in the chat saying that we got Down Under Blue saying I'm the green, or McLovin saying I'm green skyrocket candle. I know you guys love that voice. Nation State FOMO is definitely coming soon. Down Under Blues getting that $25 worth of Bitcoin. He's all in. Everyone go buy 500 BTC right now. You guys better hurry up because we're seeing Bitcoin going to potentially pass that 100K mark here in the month of May. I put some money towards that, right? Because of I'll put some sats towards that, I guess, even better. But if you guys aren't smash buying Bitcoin, you guys have joined the chat. So I will be giving you some free sats. So get your Lightning wallets ready because free sats are coming your way, courtesy of my friends over at the Bitcoin Well. But one thing that you guys can do is you could go to bitcoinwell.com/green candle. Don't forget the /green candle. You sign up. You will get 500 points every time you sign up, or if you sign up through my code. And then every person you give, you'll also get 500 Wishing Well tokens. These Wishing Well tokens allow you to win potentially up to 1 million sats. So set up those DCAs, those recurring buys right now, so you could get points to potentially win 1 million sats. And then also smash the like button, smoke it like Cheech and Chong, hit the subscribe button with the bell so you guys know when I'm going live for these sats. All right, here we go. Redeeming this. Get your Lightning wallets ready, folks. Oh, a little bit of a bigger one. We're getting 597 from the boys down at Bitcoin Well. So hopefully you guys are scanning it quick. If not, go to bitcoinwell.com/green candle. You'll see this beautiful logo here. You could scroll on down and smash buy. If Down Under Blues was in the chat, last time he was in here, he said his wife, oh no, he is in here. He said his wife is not that afternoon delight. Look, if you smash by some Bitcoin with Bitcoin Well, Down Under Blues, you do all that, you will see your wife get ready for that afternoon delight. If you do it through their OTC desk, you can go down, scroll down, bitcoinwell.com/green candle, click this, book a call from a specialist. It'll get you up there. And lastly, don't forget to get it off an exchange. Bitcoin Well is so great, they don't even allow you to put it on the exchange here, right? They're strictly self-custody. So go to Bitbox. You can get the Bitbox 02. I suggest a Bitcoin only edition. Go get that. And then you could scroll on down, get your punch plate, your Steel Wallet, your Steel Wallet Pro, the Seedor. You could get all of those, all you need. And then you could use promo code Green Candle just to get 5% off on all of it. And you guys better hurry up and do that quick because we've got CoinBase outwardly telling us the U.S. is going to buy $100 billion worth of Bitcoin soon and very soon. They're lining it up and saying, hey, we are looking at budget neutral ways in order to do this. Because we're looking at budget neutral ways, those budget neutral ways can happen overnight and they don't cost the taxpayer anything. What do they got to do? They just got to go into Fort Knox, go in and ding these little gold bars, maybe actually conduct a gold audit. They haven't done that in 50, 60 years at this point. So, it is kind of crazy that we're seeing the potential of this, and all it takes is that gold audit. Bay's central contention is that Congress could pass a short bill, restrike higher denomination of that gold certificate. When that reevaluation occurs, boom, baby, that thing is going to happen real quick. The U.S. purchase size of about 5.5% of Bitcoin's 1.8 trillion market cap. It's hard to see a situation where other governments don't feel compelled in some way to measure up. He said, adding that the dynamic could resemble the competitive situation in gold, where central banks bought a record of 1,037 tons last year. I was almost going to say tonies, but I know that isn't it, right? It's tons. Excuse me. Pardon me. Pardon the English over here. But 1,037 tons last year. Down under blues, I promise you, from my experience, when you tell the lady friends that you've got some Bitcoin, things start to fall off. Look, that's all I'm saying. I'm just going to leave it there. All right, let's go. This is a kid's show as well. I apologize. I apologize for everybody bringing your kids to Green Candle over here, but, you know, I'm a wild man. So with this, right, we've got Michael Saylor proposing, hey, buy 5 to 25%. That is that 1 million to 6 million-ish coins. The 1 million is on the tentative side. That's what Senator Cynthia Lummis offered, right? But Saylor came in and said, hey, let's put it on the table. Let's get this thing ramped up. Let's start nation state FOMO. How do we do that? Well, we start all that nation state FOMO by essentially just putting it out there, finding every budget neutral way that we possibly can, and then continuing to see it rise up. Senator Cynthia Lummis have been banging the drum for this for a long time. And I think it's incredible that the potential of these budget neutral ways could make Senator Cynthia Lummis's bill, her bill, bearish, because the U.S. wouldn't be buying that little of Bitcoin. The U.S. would be buying more. They'd be listening to the Giga Chad himself, Michael Saylor, and saying, hey, why aren't we doing that? Michael Saylor forecasted that once traditional banks and experts fully embrace Bitcoin, the demand for the asset will skyrocket. Well, what just happened? What just happened recently? Well, Michael Saylor came out and said, hey, this should happen. And then the U.S. said, banks, you know what? We're not going to require you to get FDIC approved for all of this. If you guys want to offer Bitcoin and crypto to your clients, you can do that. You could offer custody solutions. Basically, the banks have been told, hey, you want to do it? Go ahead and do it. You got to figure it out and do it a safe way for your customers. And that is where things are going to start to get spicy here, folks, because the U.S. is essentially taking the gloves and the handcuffs off of people. Look, we're going to start to see banks like JP Morgan, like Capital One, some of the biggest banks in the world start to do that. And I had a great conversation of an episode that I'm not going to tell you who came on just yet, but it's a fan favorite. And he was telling me that banks are already doing this. Banks in different areas of the world are already doing what Michael Saylor says, that banks will be able to custody their Bitcoin. Right? I'm not saying that you should trust banks or trust anybody with that. I'm a full proponent of self-custody, right? Because look, if you've even got one full coin and Bitcoin does what we think it's going to do, right? We've even got, I don't know if you guys saw this today, but I saw Tim Draper say that essentially Bitcoin is going to infinite. Look at this tweet. Look at this tweet from Tim Draper. Bitcoin might be worth an infinite amount of USD. During the Civil War, the South's Confederate dollar went through hyperinflation. After starting 1-to-1, it ended the war to 10 million to 1. People lost faith and scrambled to trade their cash for USD. But now the US dollar index is having the worst start to the year in its 40-year history. And if geopolitical tensions escalate to extreme levels, faith in the dollar may fall much further. Look, and then he even brings it to a comparison to gold. Governments are already hedging against the future by holding Bitcoin in their strategic reserve. Look at that. So if the system breaks down, you won't want to be the one clamoring to withdraw cash from the bank. You want to have enough Bitcoin to hold you and your family on for over 6 years. Or if hyperinflation happens, that Bitcoin might last a lot longer. Now look at that. Look at that. Tim Draper, a billionaire, saying all of that, right? So these guys are seeing the writing on the wall, right? They're seeing inflation unable to come down, right? I love to show this website to my friends. It's called govflation.com. It shows what the official government numbers are, and then it shows what they used to be calculated back in 1982. So look at these things that they're reporting, right? CPI 2.4%. CPI was really 10.67%. Real return is -6. But hey, we're reporting a positive real return. I know GDP came out yesterday saying it's negative. I imagine that's going to come out much more negative because that one is there. It's when it was reported positive, it was negative. And then the dollar supply was increasing a little bit, although it decreased in reality. So a lot of these things, look, they just continue to move the bar farther and farther apart. So we continue to see these things. The manipulation of data is just insane, and they're doing it to essentially tell you that everything is fine. But in reality, the only beacon of hope that we've really got here is Bitcoin. And we're seeing everybody lose faith in the dollar, right? We had Bay come out and say this, that the central demand for gold is motivated by the overall level of debt they see and the concerns around the global economy. So does it seem so crazy to maybe save some Bitcoin at, say, 90-10 ratio, given the whole world is going online? As soon as you understand the pipes of how the bank works and how the government works, he concluded, you realize they can revalue gold and buy Bitcoin still at budget neutral and once that's on the table, it's really just a matter of political will. So these things can happen extremely quick, and I imagine that they're going to start to happen very quick. We've got the legend Rock back in the chat. McLovin says, my 3% pay raise does not mean SHIT, I believe. And I mean, I agree, man. It's unfortunate. That's where we are right now, is that we're seeing wages increase. But look, we see wages increase by 3% year over year. I mean, look at these inflation numbers that we're looking at, 10, 10, 10. Like, it's not going down by 2 to 3%, right? And that's just kind of the standard that they think, right? Down under blues is saying, I have faith the dollar will continue to pump my Bitcoin. And it's true, right? Because look, even with Govflation, they've got the classic money printer GIF at the top. That's electric. And everybody loves that GIF because it pumps our bags. But in reality, it is degrading the society here. So hopefully, in all reality, we will get that changing here very soon. But you guys are joining me here on the Green Candle channel, and I appreciate it. You guys should pop on over to my Macro Insights channel because I will be going live here in less than 5 minutes, literally hopping off here, getting my tabs ready, and going on to this channel right here, right now. So smoke the like and the subscribe button here, and then meet me over at the other channel. And let's have some fun, talk some macro, because there's a bunch of other stuff that I want to rant on and yell some hot air into this camera. So tell a friend and tell a friend. And thank you guys all for joining in on this great live stream.